Mariana's going to give me a thumbs up when we're live. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I hope you loved that intro as much as I did. I mean, the anticipation on George and Andy's face, I think, say it all. Welcome, everyone, to Power to the People. And if you already follow me, actually, and or either Andy or George, you will know that we're all huge fans of human-centered, people-powered marketing. And oh, there we go. We knew that was going to happen. One of my pictures just fell down. I was trying to make my
that was pretty human, wasn't it?
That was keeping it effing human. Oh
yeah.
my god.
We're not polished here.
No, we don't do that. And you know what? That's actually an important topic for today.
Yeah.
So as you can tell, we're keeping it real, we're keeping it human. And today's episode of Power to the People is kind of going to ground this new series, which I'm launching right here, live on LinkedIn, which is going to really focus on the importance of showing up real with pictures falling off the wall behind you and really putting your people front and center when it comes to your marketing. Basically, everything I believe in is gone are the days of kind of, well, as a standalone, very corporate robot talking, which is even more important now, or corporate talking content that people find it hard to engage with. Now it's all about putting your people front and center, because that is truly how trust is built. And I have two of the best people, I would say, in the industries help me validate that point and also give you some tactics and some ideas on how you can deploy people-powered marketing within your business, whether you are a one-man band, a small business, or a huge multi-international with hundreds of thousands of staff. So there is an option for all of you here, and that's what we're going to kind of dial into today. But before we do that, I am going to introduce my guests. As you can all tell, I love talking. I talk way too much. But I just want to kind of highlight some of the shifts that we've seen over the past year or two, and some of the stats that, if you aren't already interested in this topic, I'm hoping is going to make you. So first up, 94% of B2B marketers now say trust is the most important KPI. And for me, you can't build trust in any other way or any better than with real people. You know, you can't trust a bland piece of content that's come from an invisible marketing team. You can trust us humans. Also, over 80% of B2B buying decisions are influenced by human or creator-led content. That's a huge shift, I would say, over the last year. And more than half of B2B marketeers are now actively working with creators because they outperform, sorry, I am reading some of this, they outperform traditional brand content. So we're going to unpack all of that and so much more. Before I do that, I just want to introduce my lovely guests and why I've picked them. In fact, I'm going to get them to big themselves up. And if they don't do a good enough job at boasting about how brilliant they are, I'm going to chirp in with my ideas. George, come on, come to the stage, show off. Why are you brilliant, and why should people listen to you when it comes to human-centered marketing? Oh, you're on mute. The saying of 2023, 4, 5, and
I never
6.
usually make that mistake, so that is a real embarrassing one for me. 12 years ago, I started a business called The Soul Supplier. Whilst I was working in recruitment, actually, it was the first time I was successful, and I started buying shoes to represent that success. I got obsessed with them. I knew everything about them. I started the site to help people find the best shoes and streetwear from all of the retailers. And it's since grown. Today, 12 years later, is powered by 35 brilliant people. We help millions discover what matters in culture, from trainers to streetwear to gaming. And we help brands connect and land authentically in Gen Z. And human powered is absolutely the ethos that I live by, from the passionate people that work in this business to the way that we work with brands to help them land in youth culture authentically with personality. Yeah. So it's not forced. Everything that we do is human powered. And don't get me wrong, we use AI over here. We love AI.
Yeah.
But power to the people is key right here.
It is. I'm so happy that I came up with this Power to the People strapline. It's legendary. Andy, now I am going to big up Andy a little bit. So I'm huge fans of both George and Andy. But if you want to keep your finger on the pulse, if you're not following either of these guys, please go and give them a follow on LinkedIn. Should be quite easy to navigate to them from where we are right now. Andy posts a fantastic weekly roundup of the kind of social media trends that you need to be abreast of. Well, Andy, introduce yourself. Founder of Content Cal. He was so bloody brilliant. Adobe snapped up his whole business. Tell us about yourself, Andy, and why you believe in people-powered marketing.
Thanks, Katie. And yeah, very nice to be here. I'm Andy, if we've not yet met. As you said, Katie, I co-founded Content Cal in 2016. Grew it to becoming
the 2016 roundup.
Yeah.
That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, then you made a connection. So yeah, 10 years been talking about social media stuff. Yeah, anyway, became one of the fastest growing businesses in our category, had about 30,000 customers in 140 countries. And 2021, Adobe offered us a decent amount to take it off our hands. But I've stayed with Adobe since to do the integration, and it's been fascinating building products at Adobe. I've written a couple of books on this type of topic, and saw through my journey at Content Cal how important it was putting the founding team, the subject matter experts behind the business front and center. In fact, I tell the story loads, but I'll kind of frames this chat. One of our largest deals was one when I asked the decision maker, I was like, what made you choose us? You know, and at that point we were still pretty small compared to the massive businesses we're competing against. They're like, you know, your feature set was pretty much on parity with your competitors, but we chose you because we trust you. We chose you because we think we'll get better by working with you. And telling that story still sends a shiver down my spine, because I was like, it's just a ultimate validation of everything that us three all speak about and believe in. I think now it's kind of my mission to help other businesses start to recognize where the future of B2B marketing is going. So now I'm creating 2 other businesses on the side to help this kind of thing, maybe we'll talk about it later. And now also coaching execs at Adobe to switch to, well, not necessarily switch, but trying to kind of augment how they market with this personality powered growth, which is yielding some good results. Anyway, sorry, long intro, but there you go.
No, I love this. This is what I want. And also, guys, Andy's going to hate me for this, but virtual round of applause. Maybe I'll sing to you at the end if you're really lucky.
You don't hate me that
you don't want to hear me sing. It's Andy's 40th birthday today, guys. So a massive big up to Andy for actually taking an hour out of his day to spend it with us here on LinkedIn. And we're going to do something later. I haven't decided what yet. I'll dance around the office or something. So today we are going to unpack, I guess, everything the guys have just said, but what's actually changed in buying behavior. And that, of course, is being influenced by youth culture, as George has kind of, I guess, very, very clearly put, as more of them are, coming into these buying decisions. But I just think in general, in a world of AI and fake content, the only thing you can really trust is stuff like this that is actually genuinely real. So there is a real big shift in kind of how B2B buying decisions are being made and how people find the content that they find. And we are going to talk about AI, LLMs, all that kind of stuff as well. Why I believe brand noise just isn't cutting through like it used to anymore. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do that. I'm just saying it can't be the only thing that you do. If you're trusting and relying purely on your brand-led content to do all the heavy lifting, ain't going to work, because trust is now built in public. And that's really what we're going to talk about today. I've given myself a little reminder here for some quick quick housekeeping before we jump in. First up, you should all see comments. Please do. Happy birthday, Andy. There we go. I've already got a comment. Happy birthday. So as you can see, you can write comments. Please ask your questions. I'm not going to save questions to the end. I am going to be keeping an eye on the comments throughout the LinkedIn Live, and I'll be asking questions as we go. So if you've got a question, something you want to say, please do make a comment. Also, if you want to just say hi to everyone, use the comments, introduce yourselves, guys. We're all about bringing people together. So please use and abuse the chat. Say hello to everyone, what you do, why you're interested, why you're here, what you love, what you hate, all that jazz. And the only other bit of housekeeping is we will be going live with this recording across LinkedIn as soon as it finishes, so you'll be able to find it. I think we're also going live on Instagram, YouTube, we're everywhere. We are going live. Right, so I'm gonna get started with the nitty-gritty. 10 minutes in. Andy, you spend a lot of time looking at what's going on in the world of B2B marketing. Like I said, you do some fantastic weekly insights into the things that are changing in B2B from a social point of view. You've obviously got your finger on the pulse. What do you really see as having changed right now, and what's kind of important in 2026? I know it's a massive question, but what are some of the key things that you think people should be paying attention to here?
Yeah, so I think in the context of this conversation, which is the thing I speak about probably most at the moment, I think it's clear that we are in a kind of generational shift in the way that businesses go to market, right? So that reliance on Google, we can see cracks in that, right? Well, 60% of Google searches end without a click now. Web traffic down across the board, not necessarily for everyone. Some people are doing well at recovering that, but of course, it's only heading in one direction, right? So, of course, that means the traditional playbook, you called it out at the start, Katie, where, gated white paper, SEO ranking, drive traffic in, funnel those in, that's becoming a bit of a struggle. As is the traditional performance marketing route. I'm not saying that none of them exist. There's no black and white in marketing. And I'm always one where I encourage like nuance in thinking. It's not just like, it's not one or the other. But our traditional like go-to channels, SEO, gated white papers, the kind of SDR or BDR follow-up type of process that happens, we're seeing cracks in that. And also in the same, like I said, with performance marketing, costs are only increasing because naturally, the zone is getting flooded with AI generated ads. Everyone can create ads at scale. It's not a creativity bottleneck anymore. So that now means, the kind of playing field has been leveled. So that means, okay, so how do businesses stand out, etc. And of course, we've already touched on a lot of those things already. You kind of mentioned the impact of trust, yada, yada. I think that's the thing, that's the key thing that's changing. Yes, buyer behavior is shifting more to LLMs for sure. It's still pretty small compared to Google search, but you can't ignore that growth trajectory. Predominantly that search is happening on ChatGPT, then followed by Perplexity, then others. But there's very much dominated by ChatGPT, so that's the one I pay most attention to. So I think what we're seeing is like the kind of perfect storm of traditional channels not working, buyers starting to look in other places to try and get influenced on or discover the products that they want to buy, because no doubt that is going to get worse over 2026. Is that our feeds are flooded with AI content, very hard to distill signal from noise, which is then pushing buyers increasingly into places like Reddit. Reddit is having a huge impact on buying decisions in both B2B and B2C. Oh, it's interesting, George's take on that one too. But yeah, so naturally that is kind of then again pushing everything to this kind of personality-led, community-focused, orientated, word-of-mouth driven engine that we've kind of forgotten, right? Word of mouth has always been the most powerful way of growing a business, no doubt. Like the sole supplier, George, you can tell me if you can keep me honest here, has been a huge like word of mouth like movement, right? So the best businesses have always grown through that. But we've kind of forgotten in our kind of real traditional B2B playbooks, like it's just been kind of paint by numbers approach to marketing. We've forgotten the fundamentals of like, how do we get people to talk about our brand? And that's what it comes down to.
George, I don't even need to ask you anything because I feel like, I mean, you've built a business on this, right?
I wanted to pick up on the Reddit thing. I think I'd love to know what other people think in the comments. If you go on Reddit enough, you start to understand that Reddit is dying because Reddit is full of fake comments and businesses that are very smartly put themselves in Reddit threads, and Reddit threads are created specifically so other accounts can then drop Reddit comments to push businesses, right? And this goes on in YouTube comments as well. So it's like really tricky, clever strategies to tap into communities. Actually, a lot of points that I've written about in a recent Substack article is like, how do the brands get into these niche communities? So they've already got their fingers into Reddit, and the real Reddit users are now like backing off because they're like, oh shit, the brands have got their fingers in here. And now people are like, Substack. Now I'm seeing it a little bit more on Substack of like brands trying to get in there, you know, like Selena Gomez launched her brand in there, and Nike did something last year. And so it's like the big game is, like Andy said, it's like niche communities is where a lot of cool stuff's going on. But brands don't really land in them, because when people are in niche communities, it's real, it's authentic, it's personal. And so as soon as people start to sniff brands in there and this kind of air of authenticity and salesy messaging, people back off a little bit and they get frightened, which I've done personally with Reddit recently. I've been like, click on a thread. I'll go from Google, like Andy said, the journey, I'll type the query will be with Reddit. And then I'll just see another thread where I'm like, this is a manufactured thread. This is not real. So I'm losing trust in that now as well. So then the attention shifts somewhere else. It's really wild what's going on, isn't it?
Well,
it means that we're... Sorry. You go, Andy.
Just saying, you can always count on marketers to ruin things, basically.
Yeah.
That's how it goes, unfortunately. But yeah, sorry, Katie.
Well, I was just going to say, we're losing trust with brands, aren't we? Like, we don't want to be sold to. And I say this all the time. Nobody wants to be sold to by a faceless marketing team. People trust people. That is human behavior. It's steeped in, you know, I guess since we were babies, you know, it's basic human psychology. Yet most businesses in the world of B2B are leaving this on the table by just pushing out generic branded content. It's so basic and so obvious to me. You know, there's been a huge shift in I guess, you know, from the B2C world, that, you know, people, you know, use influencers. People are, you know, most of the products I find and buy and spend way too much of my salary on are from, you know, influencers that I follow on Instagram. That's how I find clothes, products, beauty, like whatever it might be. That's how I'm finding things. I'm not even trying to find them. They're just, you know, someone at Meta is listening to me and they're showing me the things that I want and need based on probably conversations that I'm having at home a lot of the time. But and the same rules apply in B2B, yet we still seem to be pushing these old school, boring, yawn-worthy, you know, content and, you know, branded campaigns that don't really engage. Look, I'm not saying all of it is wasted. 100%. There's a time and a place, and, you know, we've done a beautiful job on branding up power to the people. You know, brand has its place, but if you don't have the human-centered element, you are going to really struggle, I think, to, you know, build that human connection with your audience. Now,
can I just say, even the NHS were using influencers to encourage people to get vaccines before certain B2B companies were, right? They were doing that in 2020, you know, so that influencers were being paid to push the vaccines, right? So we got to catch up. The government are doing it, and they're usually 10 years behind.
Yeah, I mean, guys, if you're not doing this, we really need to get onto it, because I think, you know, there's a huge demand. We all, and the stats, you know, are telling us that's how people find stuff. You know, we're searching differently. We're finding the people that we trust on platforms like this, like LinkedIn, and we're using ChatGPT to do our research. So if you're not showing up in those places as a person, or you're just a faceless brand, then you're going to struggle. So I actually want to, I'm mixing up the order of how we're going through this kind of stuff, because I actually want to talk about, I'm going to go, because there's so many different types of and sizes of businesses, and probably a few different sizes of businesses listening in right now. We hear a lot about employee advocacy, but not many teams actually do it well. Andy, can you give us the good and the, because there's things like, you must share this post, or you might, like, give me the good and bad. Well, and also for those that don't know what employee advocacy means, let's unpack it, because I think any business can do this, even if it is just you.
Yeah, and I think it's just about shifting a mindset. Employee advocacy has been a term in marketing circles for a while, right? So most of us on this call probably knows, just for avoidance of doubt, employee advocacy is empowering your employees to talk about your brand. Fine, simple. And usually the logic goes like this. Our employees have 10 times the reach, 100 times the reach of our company page, and also company page content performs 7 times better than company page. Personal brands outperform company pages by 7 times. Logical, great. It's distribution play. Makes sense. So then tech companies get onto that and go, okay, I'll name no names here, but essentially products then underpin a behavior, which is like, hey, George has created a post. Everyone in Soul Supply, I'm not saying you do this, George, but I'm going to take this as an example, but everyone in Soul Supply will reshare this post. So what does that do? Of course, drives distribution in the short term. More people will see it. And sometimes that can be useful for like a big launch or a one-off campaign. Fine, get it. Makes perfect sense. But for an always on thing, which is really what you need for like personality driven growth, trust at scale, is about putting in the reps. It's about consistency. That doesn't work, because essentially you're just going to erode trust, because you're like, well, I'm not going to listen to that person because all they do is just reshare the same things. That is not a unique narrative. It's not a distinct point of view. And I think that's typically how businesses have seen employee advocacy, and like tick the box, hey, we do this. They see it as a distribution play. Again, it's marketers ruining things by not thinking through like the proper first principles, whether it's ruining Reddit, to George's point, or whether it's just like trying to spam LinkedIn. We're always fixated on the short-term hack to try and deliver a result in the weekly or monthly KPI report. And that then leads us down. And we see this again, it's just a B2B pattern. We always see it, like the pattern repeating. It's like, I tried to do this to try and hit the numbers to please my boss or to appease quarterly results. We're always on that treadmill. Not necessarily, it's not an individual's fault. It's just the game that we're all playing. However, employee advocacy in the way that it should be done is about empowering the subject matter experts within a business. No doubt within the Soul Supplier, George, you've got a bunch of people, like you say, you actually hire people that care about what it is that you do, right? So it makes it very easy to empower them. I'd love to hear kind of your stories around this, but that's what I'm talking about. It's like how, the street's voice, Katie, is not just you as the founder. It's going to be members of your team, which I've seen multiple posts from, all in a slightly different tone around this event. It's all about how do we craft our unique voice. Yes, it takes effort. There's ways of operationalizing it, which we can cover later on, some more tactical stuff. But really, that's what I really want businesses to start thinking about. It's like, we really need to start taking a longer term view on marketing, because our short term hacks and tactics we've relied upon, as we've spoken about, are starting to go away. We need to think longer term. And that's really my call to arms.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because the best employee advocacy programs, and shout out the people in the comments, Elliot and Dominic. I agree with what Dominic said as well. Me and Elliot go way back, so thanks for tuning in. But best employee advocacy programs are going to start with just hiring the people that love your product, aren't they? So then it's just going to happen more organically. So I always say to people, if you're working somewhere where you don't care about the product, and if you're working somewhere where you dislike the product, you need to leave and go somewhere else, because you're putting your career on hold, and the company's not going to perform as a result. But this is about the individual. I always say to people in our company, I want to do what's right for you. And this isn't to like virtue signal, like I'm some good boss. This is just the way I was brought up by my dad and how I've run this company. I had 10 jobs before this with leaders that did not care in some of them. And so I've always said, like, I want to help people here as individuals to grow, do what's right for their career, create things that are good for them and learn more. But ultimately, they're only going to do that if they like the product that they work in. If they don't like the product and they're not proud of it, or they're scared to tell their friends, and some people, I understand, don't have an option, right? They have to work somewhere because it's paying the bills, it's keeping the lights on. So things are tricky, but the point is, if you find something you care about, wow, life is unlocked. You're going to be happier, you're going to get better results, you're going to come up with more ideas. And these people naturally share, I work at the Soul Supplier, or, I love this shoe. They put it on their Instagram. I got it via the Soul Supplier. It's just natural. And then, yeah, if, like Andy said, if you can incentivize them a bit more to post long term, then it's a perfect bit of momentum. But like you say, just paying people to post and spam when they don't really care, they're disconnected, people sniff it, they smell through it again. It's a classic move. Now, people are so sharp online to inauthentic content, I think. Now, what's being done just to sell and tick a box versus what's actually real.
Yeah, I'm so with you both on that. There's a couple of things I want to add. First up, I cannot vouch enough for, I mean, I've always been quite outspoken, but the opportunities I was given in employment in my earlier days of my career to have a platform and to put myself out there has absolutely meant that I have been able to launch my own business. And it is, I would say, probably one of the grounding reasons that my business is successful, because I put myself out there. I say yes to things. I go on stage. I do things like this. I have a podcast, because if I'm not there, I'm not going to get found. And I think for me, it's really important with my team that I give them a platform to have a voice. Now, we're quite a small business. Also, I'm lucky because it's my business, so I can say what the fuck I want and swear and do what I like. Not everyone can do that. But there are, I think, some grounding principles. So the clients that I work with are huge. Like, we work with Adobe, different part of Adobe to Andy's in. We also work with big brands like Contentful, Shopify, and I'm not saying this is what they've done, but we work with a lot of big tech companies. The things that can go wrong when you do this is if you run everything through your content team and they are overly controlling the narrative and the tone of voice, the quality of your content gets killed. So I think if you are a large business, you've got to give your team freedom of speech. At the end of the day, it's their LinkedIn platform. It's their, it's their voice. You've got to, not necessarily give guardrails, but give, some advice, like, maybe don't swear like I just did. Whatever those guardrails are, but let people have an opinion, be authentic and be real, because the amount of time that we have launched content campaigns for clients or, whatever we've done, and it's gone through so many rounds of edits once it's gone through, some big corporate content team, that all the personality, all the fun, all the brilliantness, is that a word? Made up, not, of the content has been destroyed. So I do think, small businesses, sometimes it's a little bit easier. But I mean, Andy, you may have stuff to add on that. Obviously, you're at Adobe. Like, you've got to let people be real and be them, because if you kill it, the whole point in this is dead to me.
Well, I think we've been on that same journey, and there has, we're still on the journey, it's fair to say. So from like an internal point of view, we have some guidelines, right? There's some things you can't say publicly traded business, so it is pretty serious, right? So, but generally we employ sensible people, right? You're like, to George's point, we're generally hiring people that care about Adobe, that are proud to work here, etc. So they're not going to say silly stuff. They're sensible adults, right?
Yeah.
So you treat people like sensible adults and say that some things you can't do. Try not to mention competitors or whatever, but otherwise go for it. So there's that we're on a journey to, but of course, not every senior exec here has a LinkedIn presence, and it's a kind of a journey that we're on. It takes time, but for the ones that have, they're already seeing results straight away off the bat, already getting featured in Forbes, etc. So it's such a quick way, especially for our enterprise sales leaders. It's become such an incredible unlock. Obviously, I can't share too many details, but it's been really significant. And then that also feeds into our influencer play. We have worked with influencers in the past where we've given a script. We've been over prescriptive, and as a result, excuse my French, the content is shit, right? So, and that's just is what it is. George's point, it's like people see through it. It's like, you can run an ad, and people are cool with branded ads if they're good. By a good person that's funny, that's creative, that tells a real story, because a creator's audience can very easily, call them out and go like, hey, you just did that for the cash, didn't you? Versus that was just good quality content. It just happened to feature an Adobe product. And it's just, we've been on that journey as part of our influencer program, recognizing that, okay, we want to work with you. We want you to talk about Adobe Express. You do your thing, whether it's like the career ladder or something like that. If you've ever seen that, we do a lot with that. The dude who runs the career ladder, lots with Simon Squibb, lots with Stephen Bartlett. Basically, like you figure out how to get Adobe Express in. Come back to us with some ideas and we'll kind of riff on that. But it's kind of flipping the script, really, if that makes sense.
It's a real tough one, that working with creators. I am going to do a whole episode on that. Influencers, creators, it is becoming more of a thing. But even some of the people that I loved most in B2B marketing are getting it wrong, because I'll start watching something and be like, oh yeah, this is, because problem state is how it usually starts, right? So they'll talk about, oh, I'm having this problem, da 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 da, and then later on they go, oh, and then I used da 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 da, and then straight away I'm going, that's a freaking ad. I don't trust anything that you've already said. For me, what would be better? I don't know. The guys, tell me if you feel the same in the comments. I'd rather you just went up front and went, look, this is an ad, but this is genuinely something that I use and that I love. Or actually, I didn't know about it before, but I've been given, because I think we're just how creators sometimes put stuff, and not everyone, maybe because I live and breathe this every day, I've got a different view on it from others, or it's more obvious to me. But I just am then like, oh God, that was rubbish. You've really put me off even trusting you now. So, and that's from people that I know are really, really good as well, that I really love and respect. And, it is hard. Like even with, Stephen Bartlett's content, sometimes like there's an interruption and you're like, oh, like you've got to be really smart. And I think almost for me, I'd rather people front it up. When I, have partners, sponsors, I will only ever work with people that I, love, trust, use the platform, know of. So I think the positioning, as this starts to come into play more, has got to be done very, very carefully, because otherwise you're going to turn more people away than you are bring them in, if that makes sense.
I've got so many thoughts on
I was going to say, you must have loads of examples with mega brands as well.
As in, your product has to be good, is the point, because you can use the one big influencer and you might be able to land it subtly. But then if people go out into the world and no one's using the product, then it falls flat, because realistically it's not happening in the real world. So in our game, we're all about consistency with brands over time. The best way to get a brand to land with Gen Z, whether that's streetwear or gaming or shoes, is going to be that this is really part of the culture. So it's seen being worn by multiple people in real life, online as well. It's shot as part of the fit. If it's a pair of shoes, there's a review about it where it's got some great feedback and people actually like it and it's comfortable. And over 3 to 6 months, it really lands in culture properly and people actually see it with their eyes. There's actually a principle for this in psychology, which is called, like, I can't remember what they call it, but it's when you see stuff in reality, therefore it's completely reinforced because it's true. So this stuff works great if the product is good and it's really happening out there on the street. But again, straight away, if you just see a big influencer wearing a pair of Uggs and then you see no one wearing them on the street, you go, no, I've been sold to again. It's like an unconscious thing that goes on in the brain where you go, there's something that I'm seeing in reality versus online is manufactured. And it's so hard to pick up on. But when you work in this stuff every day, you know how these moments are manufactured. You know what's real, you know what's not. But to an average consumer, they just get a subtle vibe like, this is not right. Something's off here, So the product has to be good. And the one other thing is Gen Z have grown up with social media, right? And they're going to become the biggest workforce. So if you want your business to survive, like you said, Katie, those smaller businesses can do stuff, but the smaller businesses, because of this, will become the big businesses, and the big businesses will become the small businesses if they don't adapt, like Adobe have done. And like, if you don't humanize, as Gen Z and then Gen Alpha become the biggest part of the workforce who connect with people because of social media, your business will fail. It won't be a business in the future in 10 years. So that's the long game.
On that, I wanted actually to delve into the tactics a bit deeper, because for me, I know when I post content that is unpolished, that I've done I don't know. I always say I've done it in my bedroom. I'm not on OnlyFans, guys. I promise. Although I am tempted after watching Olivia Atwood's filthy rich thing this week. No, I'm not really. But when I produce content on my phone, really low fidelity stuff, that content majority of the time does better than the stuff that I do here in the studio, or when we've got a studio in London, or I'm on location with my team in a fabulous country. We're off to Abu Dhabi to do a podcast takeover next week at a big luxury retail tech show next week. Like, my content that I do on my phone behind the scenes, the real stuff performs better, and that is because of Gen Z. I truly believe that, and also how we all, it feels real, right? It doesn't feel polished. It doesn't feel like it's an AI bot that's created the content. Like, I think we're moving more into that space, and where lots of people think, oh my gosh, I can't do this, I need loads of planning and loads of time and all this lovely beautiful production, and there are people that have done that and do that very well. Again, Stephen Bartlett being one. He spent a lot of money on the production of his podcast. But I would actually say nowadays, low fidelity, keeping it real, keep it easy, like less is more. People will trust you more if your content looks a bit more basic. I don't know what your thoughts on that are.
I think there's, like with most things right now, everything's happening in the extremists, where like the middle getting hollowed out, whereby, low fidelity, I agree. Adam Mosseri, head of Instagram, went live just for the Christmas, I think, talking about, like, in the age of AI, where do creators play? And, a lot of his stuff was talking to like unpolished, raw, behind the scenes type of stuff. So, it's fitting very much that narrative. But like I said, when you're in the extremists, then you've got like really high production, like all real creative activation. That's the other thing, right? Because that's also what AI can't do. AI can't see what hasn't been done before. And that's the other interesting bit. But not everyone has that muscle, right? To really flex creatively, to do something properly different, completely different activation, right? So, but either way, it's like, it does mean that those that are listening to this are a little bit more concerned about like production costs or whatever. Lo-fi definitely works, always has done, and will continue to do so, which is great. But also around the kind of other bit in the extremists is that's why I think, and there has been a consistent trend where, everything we've been speaking about is like online or platforms. In person is very much still a thing, and you know this, Katie. And, we've seen this from some of the world's largest brands starting to pull together little communities, doing a retreat, taking a few of their, those kind of celebrity influencer retreats are a little bit, sometimes a little bit hit and miss, but ultimately offline, so important. And I think that really is going to make a comeback, because that is the thing that, especially to make some of your most valued customers really feel the love, going to be very important.
Yeah, that for me is huge, because, sorry, George, just to interject, but just because I want to show off before you talk next. But that's exactly what we're doing next week. Is we're going to Abu Dhabi to Shop Talk Luxe, and we're gathering like CEOs of companies like Joseph, the MD of Europe for Ralph Lauren, and we're taking them to this really beautiful that we're having built with our client Contentful, this really, really beautiful desert experience where we've built a whole camp, and where they can have these really intimate conversations around the future of technology and digital and how it's changing in the world of luxury. And that's what we need to do more. Those spaces need to exist that aren't public, where people can gather and have, not always, it doesn't have to be quite as bougie as building your own camp in a desert in between Abu Dhabi and Dubai, but it is really important that those things, that those places and those spaces exist, because you also need to have closed door conversations to get the truth out of people sometimes. Like, not, as much, I try to keep it real and talk about the good, the bad, and everything in between. But the reality is not everyone does that. So otherwise you get this echo chamber of positivity that isn't always quite true. Sorry, I had to put that out there.
Yeah. Offline.
George, you were going to say something before I interject. Have I lost?
Yeah. No, you're good. Offline is the new counterculture, isn't it? Like, people are so fed up with manufactured online experiences that they can see the smiles on people's faces, they feel the energy in the room at an event. They can really understand, is this real? And do people actually care? And so offline is really important. Coach and Uniqlo are both opening cafes. Grace from Tala is opening more retail stores, you know, and it's going to be massive for 2026 because people are so fed up of online, I think. So yeah, in person is everything. It always has been in fashion as well. We got Paris Fashion Week going on right now. It's just about to launch because that's actually where culture starts. It starts at places like someone wears something wild at Paris Fashion Week, especially in our industry, and then that trend filters down. And 1 year later, we're seeing it everywhere. But it started in these niche communities again. And we spoke about this before the call, didn't we? Niche communities, right? Substack, please, anyone that's here and you're on Substack, connect with me. Loving it right now. And I'm a big writer. I love writing. I started the Soul Supplier as a writer writing content, right? And that's a niche community where there's a lot of good stuff going on there. But it always starts in these places and filters outwards. And brands are desperate to get involved in those niche communities, but struggling.
Well, you've led me on to my next point, which is, so we've talked about some of the tactics, how it's easy to do this stuff, like writing's important, showing up on video is important, posting authentic, real content that isn't overly produced is important, as is the polished stuff as well. But I want to talk about where people should be showing up. Now, Andy, you released some interesting stats earlier this week that LinkedIn is, so as well as it being, you know, where us humans go to search, it's actually also now the place LLMs go to search. So in terms of importance of where we should be showing up, the platforms, and George, you've just spoken about Substack as well. I'm going to hopefully get this right. Did I see that you said, Andy, that LinkedIn is it now the first or only second to Reddit in terms of where the LLMs are going to get the information and, you know, the places that they're citing? Sorry,
third, but the fastest growing.
There we go. Third, but fastest growing. So basically, the LLMs are going to LinkedIn to find and I have found this out live myself from my podcast content being screenshotted and sent to me, and people going, "Hey, I was doing some research about B2B marketing, and your podcast came up, or your content came up." So this is already happening now, guys. So not only are you attracting the humans through LinkedIn, but also that's where the bots are going too. So it's a double win as far as I'm concerned. We also, now I need a bit of convincing on this, guys. Don't go and look at my Substack. Well, actually do go and look at my Substack, follow, and I'm going to start publishing on there. Andy, I've learned this morning, now has about 4,000 followers on Substack across his different newsletters and articles. George has already just started playing with it and already got a few hundred. I have got a big fat 0. Why should we be paying attention to Substack? Why do you think it's important? Don't mind who answers that.
My answer to that is we should be paying attention to where attention is going. Gary V got that word attention in my head from when I started all these years ago. Attention. He's like, where is the attention going? And so Substack is where some of the attention is going, because it allows people to read and dig into topics that they really care about. There's more long form content on there. You could think about Substack, even though it's moved into a bit more of a social media-esque environment now as well, as the YouTube of writing, so to speak. It's long form content, right? Articles, ideas, thoughts. And it allows people to expand on more than just a LinkedIn post that has to be formatted in a funny way in order for it to look good on mobile, right? People can really expand on their thoughts. Like Andy's got, like you mentioned, 4,000 subscribers. He writes about different topics. He's wrote 2 books. So for someone that's in their field and likes writing and sharing ideas, Substack is a great place. And right now it's still in the earlier adoption phase. LinkedIn is highly saturated. To grow an audience on there and get reach is hard. Substack, it's easier to grow on there right now if you be consistent with it. So if you were to start today and you like writing, should you go on LinkedIn or Substack? I mean, ideally, they appeal to slightly different things. You could do both. But where are you going to get big growth if you're consistent? Probably Substack, because it's early in its growth journey. It's earlier, should I say. It's definitely not early. And they just had 100 million investment as well. So they're probably on a growth journey themselves. So that's just, it's a niche place, a niche community where attention is going for definitely young people as well. especially in our office. People are talking Substack is bubbling away. So where is the attention? Substack's one place, definitely. We're building a community. It's launching very soon in the Soul Supplier app. It's going to be the sneakers and streetwear community. The place for youth culture to hang out is what's going to be going on in the Soul Supplier app. So we're launching that soon to help people find their tribe and connect. Big platforms are oversaturated and boring. They feel disconnected. People want smaller places to communicate now, so it feels real. And that's why I think this shift is going on a little bit.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, sorry, Carrie. Carry on.
No, I'm just saying it's so interesting because it is. Like Substack has been sort of on my radar and we haven't done enough, but we're about to launch articles and newsletters. So Substack, I'm coming for you. And it's the thing, you've got to keep your finger on the pulse. You've got to join, LinkedIn Lives like this. You've got to, keep investigating with the technology. Everything is changing so quickly right now. Human behavior is changing. How we buy is changing. How we search. And that is being influenced by technologies. But we can't forget that there are humans sat behind all of this. And that's why it's, I think it's important to keep your brain switched on. Andy, anything else to add on Substack or other platforms, places, trends, tactics that we should be aware of right now?
Yeah, just to kind of build on, you mentioned the point about like LinkedIn being cited in LLM. So I'm still a big fan of LinkedIn, and despite the Substack, which all the newsletters I subscribe to are from Substack. It's the highest quality writing on the internet generally. So I am a big fan, and it does require us to reset our expectations as to what a follow account means, right? Because having 2,100 or whatever number on Substack is a lot more beneficial than having 10,000 followers on LinkedIn or Instagram or something like that, right? So followers mean more on Substack. They mean more because every time you publish something, it's hitting everyone's inboxes. The other thing that I love about Substack is that you also own the data of everyone's email addresses. So that is also incredibly important. And something that I don't think I'm a social media nerd, right? And it's that bit that I'm always uncomfortable with when your business is built too much or reliant in one dimension. Then you're always going to be at the behest of algorithm changes, because guess what? The platforms are not there to serve you. They're there to serve themselves and please their shareholders. That's the unfortunate thing. It gives us incredible reach and distribution. But you see all this stuff that's happening on Instagram right now. It's like they're calling it the like recession. No one's content's getting liked anymore. So it makes people feel awful. There's all of that nonsense that's happening. And of course, followers don't matter as much as they used to. Substack kind of bucks that trend. It's kind of like social media of old, where you select to go, I like George, I'm going to read his stuff, so I'm going to follow him. So every time George publishes, I get an email. So there's a lot of value in that. But we need to then reset our expectations to be like, this isn't about reach and distribution. It's about trust. It's about depth, all that kind of stuff. So just about kind of modeling in our mind. Then with LinkedIn, back on like the kind of LLM topic, I can't remember if you mentioned this before the call or on the call, but for avoidance of doubt, 75% of all of the LinkedIn citations are happening in ChatGPT, and even more so, it's even more prevalent in Microsoft Copilot, Claude, and Perplexity, that LinkedIn articles are being cited. Out of 1 in 4 LinkedIn citations, 3 of them are going to be for every 4 LinkedIn citations, 3 of them are coming from an article. So for my play, I love Substack, yada, yada, and I'm copying and pasting my Substack article directly onto my LinkedIn newsletter. Same thing, just maximum distribution and maximum reach, because it has a compounding effect, because it will also get picked up in LLMs. I tried this for myself, looking at the data, Googled what's important. I checked.
ChatGPT,
What is what do brands need to know in 2026? Very generic term. The first citation, the first thing was a LinkedIn article. So I was like, okay, this is pretty real now. And it then says we've got like quite a compounding effect. So for me, Substack, LinkedIn newsletter, and LinkedIn posts, those 3 together have been quite a good flywheel for driving attention, getting followers, yada, yada, for kind of shorter form written content. and then driving people into the flywheel of my Substack, which of course then is like always on community oriented vibes, which then manifests in like quarterly meetups and events that I run. I mean,
My team are going to have some work to do on Substack now. They're watching this going, oh no, Casey's going to ask us to do something else. So that's definitely a space that we need to play catch up in. Well, it is the beginning, but it's not the beginning, if that makes sense. And we're just hearing about it more and more and more. So yeah, watch this space, guys. Substack is coming for you. Oh my God, guys, so much interesting stuff to unpack in there. One big question that I had, and I don't know if you've got the answer to this, but you know, I'm going to ask it anyway. So I was always taught back in the old days of SEO, you can't write the same thing in two places because it's a fight against. Now, has that, because you can't publish the same article on your website and on LinkedIn, because then someone in Google or some bot somewhere goes and freaks out and doesn't show either of them. Is that still the case, or do you think you can literally post exactly the same if it's relevant? Because it sounds like that's what you're doing, Andy, is you're putting the same articles on Substack and on LinkedIn. They're not fighting against each other in some weird SEO thing that I don't really understand.
So you're right, Google used to penalize that behavior.
Yes.
But given that the rules of the game have changed, so right now it's citations, and in fact, and again, I use this with some caution, right? Because whilst this is a tactic that works for now, this is a bit tactical, right? Which therefore means we go back into the point of like, oh, this is a short-termist hack, which marketers love. I love. No, don't get me wrong. So those are also subject to change. So right now, it's fine.
Yeah. But it might change, and that's the thing. You've got to keep your eye on the prize.
Exactly. And just note that the key thing that's driving both Google AI overviews and LLMs is all about the volume of which your brand is mentioned. So the more that you're mentioned in articles and social content, the more likely you're going to get discovered in those surfaces too. So again, that just speaks to the whole thing that we've just been talking about, really building a word of mouth engine, people powered, whether it's yourself, your audience, your users, your influencers. Empowering as many people as possible to talk about you is the name of the game. And
that's a really good point as well, is write and talk like a human. Don't be tempted to write like a AI robot, and don't be kind of, I guess, pulled into the corner of writing like some kind of corporate weird engine. People now, I search and I ask ChatGPT things on my phone with language that I use day to day. So therefore it's finding things that are written in a normal human way. So stop trying to, rewrite stuff so that you don't sound like you. I think that's really important to me whenever I say anything to the team. Mariana's sat in the background here with me from my team, is like, would you talk like that to your best friend? Would you write that to your best friend? Because if you wouldn't, we're not putting that out. It needs to be chatty, informal, human, real. Stop thinking that you have to write like AI or like a corporate robot, because that's going to do you more damage than good. You need to sound like a human, sort of taking it back to that power to the people piece. Right, guys, we have got 7 minutes left. I'm probably going to give people a little bit of the gift of time because we've covered a lot. Is there anything, George or Andy, that we haven't covered that you think is really important when it comes to this whole people-powered marketing piece? I think I feel like I've gone through most of the topics without even checking them all properly. Done a good job.
There's a lot.
Yeah. I mean, there's probably so much more, but we've kind of talked about social selling. We've talked about where you can start. We've talked about what's going on with LLMs, the platforms.
I've got one about Gen Z are going to become the biggest workforce very soon. They're on their way. People said that Gen Z don't want to work. We've got quite a few Gen Z in our company. They're brilliant. And 2 or 3 of them are some of the hardest working people in the business. They're creative, they're supportive. Gen Z do want to work. They just want to work at places that are down with the modern culture. And Gen Z are literally going to be the biggest asset in 2026 through to 2030 if you are building a product that's great with people that have personality and heart and are kind. If you can do those two things, build a great product with great people behind it that care, then you're going to attract Gen Z that care, and they are going to become a huge asset. And ultimately, you need them on your side because they are going to be the biggest portion of the workforce by 2030. So it's time to start adapting as companies, and it's time to start listening to Gen Z. So if you're not sure about what to do, go and ask a local Gen Z in your town about what you should do, and I'm sure they'll give you some answers. Yeah, so that's big for me.
Yeah, love that, and so true. Similar here at Street. Most, apart from me and a couple of others, everyone's Gen Z. So you're so right. Andy, anything that we haven't discussed that you want to add before I have a couple of little closing pieces?
The only thing was a more kind of tactical thing. So maybe we can ping this out somewhere. But
love this.
One of the things that we've not spoken about is how to operationalize it, right? Because whilst George is a natural writer, so are you, Katie. You're great on camera, and then I can write. I'm okay at it, but it doesn't come naturally for everyone. And how does a business empower the voices within their business to have the confidence to elevate themselves? So I'm building a product to help with this. So that's the kind of next step in my marketing tech thing. So maybe I'll pop a link to it somewhere. So
love that. I think that's really important, by the way, Andy. Like we got some people with great opinions and voices here who are scared to post and don't know how to communicate it. And aside from me running workshops or someone else and helping support, a tool like that could really help. But again, we have to be careful with tools, right? Because ChatGPT wants you always to sound so certain. AI is like, sound more impactful. Stop sounding like you've got doubt. Not saying the tool is that, but it's like, finding our voice in this world. Now, there's so many problems with AI and what it's doing to our thinking and our writing, right? And so many people don't realize how many problems it's causing. That's a whole nother topic to discuss. Yeah. But yeah, we have to find our voice is key, but that is the difficult thing. And AI is not going to help you do that. You just have to be freestyle and find it naturally over time. Because if you let AI do it, it's not your voice, I guess is the point I'm making.
Yeah, and you can see it a mile off as well. That's the other thing I would add to that is, show up in the way that feels the most natural and that you're most confident in. So if you love writing, write. If you love doing video to camera and like me, then do that. If you like doing something different and just photos and short text, do that. Do something that's repeatable, because actually the compounding effect is probably one of the most important things. So to get started with this, do what feels the most natural to you, because then it's not going to feel like a chore for you to go and do it. I just want to say I've got a couple of asks, one question which I'm going to ask. A big thank you to everyone. Dominic from my team, Jonathan Pearson, Elliot. I'm going to say people's names wrong because it's one of the things that I do. Elliot Corgat. Hopefully I've said your name right, not wrong. Jonathan Pearson, Vishali, I'm hoping I've said that right. And Dion, Imran, so many more of you for your lovely comments. I do have one question, which I said I was going to give you the gift of time. I'm going to run over now. Daryl Scott, hi Daryl, by the way, good friend of mine, has asked, what makes great Substack content? Andy, seeing as you've been the most prevalent on there, what does make the best content on Substack? Where do we get started?
I don't think there's a playbook for it. It's like write the stuff that you care about, that you are deeply passionate about, and write everything with as much generosity as possible. Don't gate stuff, just give. And that's it. I don't think I have anything more than that. But writing is the greatest clarifier of thought that exists. So write it.
So with you on that. Probably I always like to think from a B2B marketing point of view, like think about the problems that the audience that you want to engage with has and faces day to day, the things that keep them up at night, structure those problems and answer them basically, and that's kind of a really basic way to develop a good content strategy. Last but not least thing that I'm going to put out there, feel like we could have a whole session on Substack. Maybe I need to get them on as a sponsor. So Substack, I'm coming for you in every way possible. In terms of topic, we are going to be doing these every single month. We're going to be obviously delving into everything that you need to know from a human-centered B2B content perspective. Next up, please message me, because I'm probably not going to have time, and I don't think you can do polls on here yet, but they need to probably launch that at some point. You used to be able to do that on Zoom back in the good old days. Next topics, I'm thinking either we're going to get LinkedIn on someone from the B2B Institute at LinkedIn to talk about trends and topics in B2B marketing in 2026. If you want that, please message me and say that you want that. The other option that I have is more around influencer marketing, content creators, and how B2B businesses can use them. And maybe we need to do something on Substack. So that 3 choices. Please DM me, let me know the topics that would be of interest to you, or if there's something else totally different from all of those, message me that instead. But a big thank you and virtual round of applause for Andy and George. Seeing as it is 3 o'clock, I'm not going to sing happy birthday to you, Andy, don't worry. But let's all wish Andy a virtual happy birthday, darling. Enjoy the rest of your 40th. I hope you have a fun day. And big thank you for joining us. And for all of you who don't already follow Andy and George, please do subscribe to me. I will make sure that I'm posting lots and lots and lots about when the next one comes up, and it will be on the Street Agency page. So go give us a follow there as well. But a big thank you to all of you for being here for our first Power to the People LinkedIn Live. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, Katie. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.